The setup for Selenium is going to take a little while, and I don't want you just to close out and think this is too hard. I want to show you how cool this tool really is. So if you follow along with this video, in the end, you're going to have a program and you're going to understand all of this code, and then you're going to have a program that goes out to GitHub for you and goes through the repos, opens all the pages, goes through all the links, and pulls out if there's any passwords or not stored in the code on the GitHub page. And so it will look like this when you run it. And it automatically went through all of those links on GitHub. It pulled down this page right here. It says a password was found at this link. And so if we click on this link, it'll take us to this page right here, and we can look at this and we can go to the raw and we can type in password, and right here it tells us it has found password, and the password is admin, and it found this on this GitHub page. So that is where we're going. And if this tool looks like something you would like to add into your bug bounty or penetration testing arsenal, then you can stick around and go through and make this tool with me. We start with our program and using Selenium. There's a few things that you have to do, and I'm going to walk you through installing this both on Mac and Windows. You will need your PyCharm editor that we used in the first Python for Ethical Hackers. And now you are going to need Google Chrome installed, and so I'll have this link down in the description. If you don't have Google Chrome, it is best if you use it. You can also do it with Firefox, but it's really easy if you just download Google Chrome and follow along with me. And we're going to also need to install the Chrome web driver. So what you will need to do is download the version of the Chrome driver that matches your Google Chrome installation. In order to find out what version of Chrome you are running, you will come up here, click the three dots, you will go down to help, and you'll click about Google Chrome. And then I am running this version right here. In order for me to update my Google Chrome, if it doesn't match any of these over here, then I would just have to close out of Chrome completely. You just go and close the app and it will automatically update. And I am running this version right here, 101.0, and I would come back over here and I would say 101.0. For me, it would be this one. I would click this and then it will bring you to this page. It looks exactly like this, and it will tell you what version of software you're running, and you will click that version. So if you're running Windows as your operating software, you click Windows, Mac, or Linux. For Mac, I use this one right here. And when you install it, remember where you put it, because we are going to need to know the complete file path in order to reach the Chrome driver. I have mine stored right here in a folder on my desktop. So if I open this up, I have my Chrome driver right here, and I will need to know where this is. We will need to know the entire path, and you can do this. You can see the full path by right clicking and going to get info, and then it will tell us where the full path is at right here, because it tells us where, and then we say Mac, user, Ryan, desktop, the folder is developer, and then we hit the Chrome driver. So you'll need to go ahead and install Google Chrome and then install the Chrome driver, and we will continue walking through how to finish setting up Selenium when you have finished doing that. After you have downloaded the zip, go ahead and unzip it, and it will automatically unzip into your downloads, and then you can drag it into a different folder like I have. I've just made one called developer, and you can go ahead and drag yours out of your downloads, or you can leave it in your downloads if you choose. The only reason I move it out of my downloads is because sometimes I go and delete everything out of my downloads folder, and I don't want to delete this if I am using it. For the Mac users, after you've downloaded this and you have moved it into your location where you would like to keep it, for me, I'm going to just go like this. I will open back up this folder. I'm going to show you what we did earlier. Just go to get info. You can now copy this as your full path, and then we can say our Chrome driver. So we'll go CDP for our path, and then you can paste it in here just like this. And I believe we need to go / Chrome driver. So we'll go / Chrome driver. And this entire thing will need to be inside quotations. Now I'm going to cover the installation of Selenium for Windows users. Okay, for our Windows users, what we're going to do now is click Chrome driver Win32 and it will download. We will open up where this is. It's going to say we want to, how do you want to open this file? We'll just go ahead and open it. It says we now have this Chrome driver and it tells us that this is an application. If you don't have any place in particular you want to store it, go ahead and put it in your C drive. But before we do that, we'll just open this up. We will make a new folder and do the same thing we did on the Mac, and we will say developer, and we'll just leave this here, and we can go back to our downloads where we grabbed this folder and we extracted our Chrome driver, and we're going to put this into the developer. Now, the reason I had you do that is because when you look at the location of where this is stored, it is really simple to get to. It tells us that it is in C/developer. We can copy this. We will put it inside of a string, and then we will put slash, and now we will do the same thing we did on the Mac, and we will say the Chrome driver path, and now we have that stored as a variable. Sorry to my Windows friends, I forgot to mention that when you run this Chrome driver, you will need the .exe in order to get the executable to run, and pretty much everything from this point on is going to be the same as I run it on my Mac. If you have any problems, please let me know in the comments and I will try to help you out. Okay, we are ready to install Selenium. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to import Selenium just like this, and because I have done it before and I have already installed it on my Mac, this is here and ready for me. But what you may need to do is it will have a red squiggly line and it'll pop up a window like this, and you're going to click install or import. I can't remember which it is, but I think it's install, and you'll click install, and it will take just a second to go ahead and install that. And then what you're going to want to do is type in from Selenium, and then we're going to import the web driver. Now that you have installed Selenium and typed in from Selenium import web driver, we're going to initialize our web driver, and we're going to type in driver equals webdriver.chrome because that's the browser we're using. There are other browsers if you've chosen to go that path. And now we're going to type in our executable path. And the reason this is yellow is because this has to be capitalized like this. And we're going to type in executable path, which I believe is actually deprecated. And I have not gone back and read the documentation for the new way to run this without the executable path, but we're going to type in CDP. It's just going to give us a error when we run this, or it's just going to give us a warning saying that this version is deprecated for running the web driver, but that's okay. We will get our program to run without it. It just means that they are not updating the executable path like this anymore. And now what we're going to do is type in driver.get, and we're going to type in something like www.google.com. And then once this is done, we're going to want our driver to close the window. So you can type in driver.close, but I don't like to use driver.close personally because it just closes the window, but we will be still running the Chrome down here in our browser. I want it to quit. I want it to close that window all the way out to save on my memory space on my Mac. So we're going to type driver.quit just like this. And if you run this like I will and you are on a Windows, it's automatically going to run for us. It should open without any warnings and give us google.com, and then it will close this page for us. All right, the reason this is giving this error is because we need to type in https://google.com. Now when we run this, it should open up Google for us and close the file. So that is how we run it. But if you're on a Mac, if you're on Windows, that worked for you and you didn't get any problems. If you're on a Mac and this is the first time you've ever ran Selenium, you're going to get a little error that pops up with a window, and it's going to say move to trash or cancel or close. You're going to click cancel or close. Out of your two options, you're going to come up here, you're going to go system preferences, you're going to go security and privacy, and right here it will say that you tried to run a Chrome extension and it was blocked, you will click allow. If you're not allowed to click allow, you can unlock it by clicking this and typing in your password to unlock your Mac, and then click allow, and then you can relock it. Then when you close out of this and you rerun it, it will give you the option to open anyway, and you'll have a new pop-up, and you will just click open and it will begin running and working for you just like this on your Mac. Now it is time to begin some of our web scraping. Okay, so we are at our screen and it looks like this. I've decided to go ahead and show you how to get rid of this deprecating warning. So when we run our program and it runs this right here telling us that the executable path has been deprecated, just in case they stop using this in the future, I want to go ahead and show you the way to get rid of this. I'm going to use running the executable path because I believe that it is faster, and I might be wrong, and that's okay. And you can run Selenium however you choose. You can run it the deprecated way or the current version. I think they're at version 4 if you choose. But we'll have to import a few more services from Selenium. So we'll go from selenium.webdriver.chrome.service import, and then we're going to import service, and then we're going to need to import the Chrome driver manager. So we're going to go WebDriver manager.chrome, and we're going to import Chrome drive manager just like this. Now I'm going to comment this out because I'm going to use it as we go through, but you can delete this if you want to use the non-deprecated version. And I think you're still going to get these red inputs down here, or these red warnings that's going to tell you like it's installing the newest version of the WebDriver every single time you run it, but that's okay. And we're going to type in s equals, and then we're going to type in our service, and then we're going to run our Chrome driver manager, and we're going to call this, and then we will call the install function. And the reason we're going to do this is because every time you run this service, it is going to check to see what version of Chrome you are running. So we'll just comment this out so we're not getting this warning. And this dot needs to go, I did this wrong, we'll go like this. All right, it is not wanting to work for me, so we'll close it off manually, and then we're going to hit dot install. Right here, we're going to call this method, and then we have to close off this whole line here. And now we're going to turn this over to our driver, and it's going to equal the WebDriver.chrome, and then we're going to use the service, and it's going to equal s, just like this. Now, if we uncomment our driver down here, we'll have no errors, and when we run this, it will now work for us. And it's going to tell us we are using, this is the version of Google Chrome that we're using. If you remember, we checked our version earlier and then we installed the Chrome driver, and it tells us we have the Chrome driver that matches our version and it is found in cache. So it now works. This is the non-deprecated way to run this tool. I decided to go ahead and show this to you, like I said, just in case the way right here, the deprecated version to get to the Chrome driver is no longer supported in the future. All right, I have gone ahead and commented out this code, and I'm going to use the Chrome driver that is on my computer that we already installed. There's one more thing we're going to need to import in order to not get any deprecation errors, and that is the by. We're going to import by. So we're going to type in from selenium.webdriver.chrome, or sorry, not Chrome, .common, and then we're going to use by, and then we're going to import, and then by like this, if I can get back there, like this. And this is another update with Selenium. The way I originally learned Selenium, we didn't have to use this, but they have updated it again, so we will need to use this by module here. So what we're going to do is open up Amazon, and I'm going to show you how this scrapes. If you've ever wondered why you have to answer questions to make sure you're not a robot, you're going to find out in this course. So if we come over to a web browser and we type in Amazon, and we go to Amazon, and let's say we want to buy a new drill bit. So we just say we want a drill set. Okay, we're getting a drill set, not a drill bit. And we click on this drill, and we really want this drill, but we don't want to pay $43 for it. We want to pay $38 for it. We can actually set up our WebDriver to go out and check this price for us. So what we would do is we would inspect this, and we can look for the class right here, and it's going to tell us that it's 43. So you could set this up. Let's say instead of 43.99, we don't really care about the 99 cents, and we just want it to be less than 38. So 37.99 would work. We could use this span, but for the sake of getting the 99 involved, we will use this one right here for our project. So we'll go ahead, click on this, and we're going to use this class right here. And we're going to grab a class out of these right here, and we want to grab one that looks really unique, that isn't going to be used anywhere else. This class looks really unique to me, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and then we'll come back over to our Chrome driver. And underneath of our google.com, we're going to type in price equals, and then we want the driver to scan through all of this source right here, the HTML, and we're going to tell it we want to find an element, and we want an element by a class name. So we want to make sure we don't have elements by class name. We want a single element by the class name. Later, we're going to use the one with the S. And this is the deprecated version. I forgot. This is the version that I learned when I was using this. What we do here now is we delete all of that, and we delete that, and we come in here and we say by dot class name. And in here, we're going to put that class name that we just copied, just like this. The next thing we need to do is update this HTTPS right here, and it needs to be this URL right here, so that way our Chrome driver opens up the right URL, scans through all the HTML. It's going to look for the class name that possesses this, and then we want it to print the price like this. So we'll say print, and then we want to print the price. So if we run this, how it is right now, I'll show you what our output is. It gives us this as our output, and this is not helpful. So what we need to do in order to grab the plain text is type in text. So now if we run it, it's going to print out for us our $43.99. And I'll show you what would be useful if we're really going to turn this into a web scraper for us. It really would be useful to get rid of this 99 and just use this right here. So you can see why it's printing the way it is. This span, 43.99, and it's given it to us on different lines. So we should be able to copy, let's try this class right here. And this really is, when you're making these, going to be a lot of trial and error, as you're going to see in a little bit when we make our new dumpster diving ethical hacking tool and we try to automate some of our recon, where it's going to be a lot of trial and error. So we'll let this run, and we get the $sign. That is not what we want. So we'll try this one, and we will paste this in here. And now we can run it and see what comes back. And we grab just the 43. So now if we wanted this to run, say every 20 minutes to see if Amazon has updated their price and brought it down below $38, we're going to put all of this inside of a function that is going to get called every 20 minutes, and we're going to have to import a new module for this. And we're going to do that in the next section. All right, now that we have our web scraper working, let's say we wanted to go out and check the price every 5 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever we want it to be, and then let us print it into the console. What we would do in this case is put this into a while loop. And so what we can do is take this and we can say while on, and then we want the on to be true all the time. So we'll say on equals true, and this should be familiar to you if you have gone through the first part of our Python for Hackers. And then we're going to need this inside of a function that gets called every 4 seconds or 30 minutes. And we'll need this inside of a function that gets called every so many minutes. In our case, I'm going to set it to only 5 seconds, so that way we don't have to wait very long. But in a real case scenario, you would make this run maybe once a day or every couple of hours to check the price. But for now, we're going to make a function and we're going to call it 5. We'll call it 5 seconds. We'll call our function, and then we will need all of this to be inside of our function. And now we need to call the function like this, and we will say 5 seconds, and then we are going to take this and we need this to sleep. So we'll say time.sleep, and you will need to import time up here if you have not already. And we're going to say sleep for 5 seconds. Now when we run this, it's going to take 5 seconds. It's going to launch our driver, go out, check the price, and print it down here in our console for us. And then once it gets done doing that, it's going to wait 5 more seconds, and then it is going to launch the browser again and check the price for us. And it will do this for all eternity because we are inside what's called an infinite loop. There's no way for this loop to end, and so it's just going to keep on going and printing for us the price until we stop the program. So this isn't really helpful for us in the world of hacking, so we're going to stop here. I just wanted you to get this concept down of using Selenium, setting up functions, using a while loop. If we were to use this completely for our daily use, we would have to make an if statement and say if the price is equal to or less than $38, then we would import another module and we would have it send us an email or a text message saying the price is ready for us to go and buy it. But we're not going to finish this out because it's not really going to be helpful for us in the world of hacking. So we'll move on to building our actual tool for hacking. I have cleaned out my text editor here just to get it down to the bare bones of what we are going to need as we build this tool. I have put this right here. This is the GitHub repo that we're going to be going through and dumpster diving for. Now this should work for any GitHub page if we program this right, but I made this GitHub page just for us to test against to make sure our tool is running. I didn't want to spam an actual GitHub account that is in use, so this is just a GitHub account that I made for the purpose of showing you how to build this tool. So what we're going to make in the end is a tool that when we run it, it runs what target would you like to run against. And so we're going to copy the URL of the GitHub page that we want to scan. And when we run it, it's going to go out to GitHub. It's going to click on the repo. It's going to click on the code. It's going to go to the raw, and then it is going to tell us a password was found inside this page. And so what you could do is just copy this or click on it, and it will take you to this GitHub page, and you can search for where this password was used. So we're going to make a very basic program just like this one, and I hid a lot of the code. It's down there. I didn't want you to get a head start. So as we make this tool, when we're done, it's going to be very basic, but I would challenge you to make it your own and add to it different files that you want it to search for different keywords. Make it print the entire line where the password's found so you don't actually have to go out to this page and check it. These are things that I've done with my tool that I've made just like this. And so I want to show you guys how to get started making this tool and then add on to it and make it your own. Okay, as we go through building this tool, there are a few things we're going to do at the beginning that I'm going to tell you to change at the end to make the entire tool work well for you. So what we're going to do at the beginning is we're just going to get rid of this right here because we want to put in our repo that we're going to be scanning against. And I'll leave that GitHub repo up unless it ends up getting taken down by GitHub because it is getting scraped over and over and over by people from all over. But until then, I'm going to just leave this GitHub page up for you guys. So we'll just put that inside of our GitHub page, and now we can comment this out and it should open up that page for us and then quit, and it did. So there it ran. And what we're going to do in the end is we will change this and we will make this an input, but we're going to cover that at the end when we get to that section. Now that we have it, so it'll open up this page for us, we want it to grab something for us by an element. And because usually there's a bunch of repositories in here, we're going to just use the repositories instead of getting the element by, let's say, the class name. Get the element, we're going to make it get elements by class name, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So we'll go in here and we will say we need this class titled repo. Okay, and this is what these will be titled as for us, and we have this anchor tag right here. So what we're going to do is we'll do the same thing we did in the last one. We're going to say that the repository, and we'll name this as, we'll call this our res for resources, and we're going to turn it into a variable, and it's going to get for us all the repos by the class name. So we'll say driver.find element, and then we want this to be an S. And the reason we want this to be an S is because we want to find all the elements and we're going to store them inside this variable. Now for this cause, there is only one right here, but this should work with many repos if you scan a GitHub page with many elements with the class name of repo. So we'll continue and type in by.class name. We don't want a class, we want the class like this. Class name, and the class name is repo, just like this. Now if we run this, it will go and it will click this page and then it will close. So what I want to do is I'm going to add in time.sleep, and we'll make this 2 seconds so that we can see what's happening, and then we'll make another time.sleep right here so that you can see that it clicks onto the next page. So we'll run this, it's going to open, wait 2 seconds, and then it's going to open this repository right here and close. So now what we need to do is make a for loop so that way we can print the repos that are on this page. And in this case, there's only going to be one, but we're going to go ahead and make this for loop, and we'll say for I in all these listed resources, we want to print, and we want to print I. And what we would do here is we'd say print I.text because we want to see it in the text format, and then it will quit for us. I should have gotten rid of the sleep for us, and I see I spelled that wrong, and that's okay. I made that repository late at night, and it's all right that it isn't quite right. It's still a repository and we can still scan against it. So it prints for us this repository right here. So now that we know, we can loop through all of the resources that have the element class name repo. We need to figure out how can we click on those, and there is a click function that we're going to use later, but right now I want us to go through and see how we can do this a different way. It's going to be a little more complicated, but it's always best to know there are multiple ways to do something, especially in the world of coding and in the world of hacking. All right, because we're not going to use the click function, we need to see what happens when we click on this link right here. Now, this is something in cybersecurity that you're going to need to always do when you're testing a page. Not that we're testing GitHub, but when you test a page, it's always good practice to click and see what happens, how to use the page to see what's going on. And what we're going to do is check out this URL. So this is the URL that we start out with, and since it just changes the repo name as into the new directory, what we're going to need to do is take this directory and put it into a new link and get our WebDriver to open this up. Since we know we can run this, and I'll go ahead and comment out these times sleep because we don't need those no more. Since we know we can run this and we can get it to scrape all of the repositories and then print them down here, now we can just save these into a list, and then we can loop through that list and get it to append that to our URL. This is a little more complicated than the click function, but it's helpful because we will need, so that way we can get it to open every single repository that we go through in the future when we go through a page that has a lot of repositories on it. So what we will end up doing is making a list, which you've seen in the past. And if you want, you can pause the video and see if you can figure out how to make a list on your own if you remember. And so I'm just going to name our list as links, and we're going to make it empty. And what we are going to do now is we're going to take this and we're going to say links dot append, which I don't think you've seen before, and we want to append I. So now if we take this and we move it over and we print, we need to append I.text, so that way we get it right, I.text. And now we print the links right here. We should get the repository to print from our list. So we'll run this and give it a test. And it says we have repository and we have the brackets, and it is inside the list. So what we will do now that we have this list is we're going to make another for loop, and we can comment this out because we don't need that to print every time. And in this for loop, we're going to name it for L for the links. Inside the links list, we're going to make a new variable, and we're going to call it next page. And this is when I tell you my variable naming becomes very poor because I'm not very creative. And we're going to make this an F string, and we're going to call the repo. And if you remember, and we're going to call the repo, but we need to first name it something. So we need this URL to be assigned to a variable. And so we'll just call this our repo. And at the end, we're going to change this because this is going to be an input, and we're going to make this a string, just like this. And now we have this repo right here, and we'll add a slash so that way we don't have to later. Actually, we'll delete the slash and we'll add it down here in our string. Give us some practice with that. So we're going to take this repo, and because it's a variable, it needs to be in an F string with these curly braces, and we're going to add in our slash, and then we will add in another variable, which is going to be our L. So what would happen if we had a bunch of repos? This is going to go through all of the links, which we saved right here as our resources. It's going to get all the links. This for loop is going to run through all these links, and it's going to put them into our list that we have called links. And if you remember, this is where our repositories will be saved. Now we need to loop through there. And in this for loop, it's going to loop through our links, and it's going to give us a new URL. So what this URL will look like after it runs through this second for loop is it will look like this, and it will come out with our repository that I spelled wrong. And it's going to open up this page, and it will go and click this link for us. So this is the repo we want to attack. It will click this, and it will bring us to this page. So let's go ahead and try this. We're going to run this with a sleep command when we are ready. So what we need to do at this point is store our next page in a new link, and we'll just call this our final link. So we'll just call it flink, and we will save this into a list. And then we're going to append our new URL, remembering what this one right here is going to look like, because it's going and looping through a second time of this links, and it's making our new URL that we want to test, which is going to be this one right here. And we will tell this to append. So we're going to do flink.append, and we want to append the next page, and we're going to want it to append to the next page right here. So as we have this next page, if we print this, I'll show you what it looks like. So if we print this, we can say print, and then we're going to print the flink, and we'll just go ahead and pull this back here, and we will run this, and it'll show us what our new URL looks like. I accidentally left this slash. That's okay. The browser would have just deleted this second slash. So now if we run it again, it's going to spit out for us this new link. And if you copy this link or just click on it, it will take you, we'll just click on it, it'll take you to this page. And so that is how far we have gotten. So now we have moved with Selenium from this page to the next page. And where we're headed is inside this main.py. And then we're going to go into the raw. And then we want to know if in any of this there is a password or some kind of keyword. And so I'll just show you. If we type in command find and we type in pass, we'll see this password admin. We're going to make our program go through all of these words and all of these lines inside this text and pull down the password for us. So that's where we're headed. But right now we got a few pages more we need to move. We are right now on this landing page right here. So we'll try and figure out how to make it open this page and then go into the raw and then search for the password. So we'll keep going in the next section. Okay, it is time to call our first function. So we can go ahead and comment out this print statement right here, and we can call our first function. And we're going to call it above our for loops because we need our function to be called above where the function needs to be located above where we call the function. So we will call this function, we'll just call it a loop because we're going to loop through all the links. So we will call it like this. We'll say loop, and then we're going to pass in the next page because that's what we want to go searching through in this function. So this is red because we haven't declared our function, and we'll declare it up above, and we will say def, and we'll call it our loop, and then we're going to pass in a function. We'll actually just call it our next page, so that way we understand what's happening. Next page, and we have to add in our 2 dots there. And now what do we want to do now that we can get to the next page? Now there's a couple of things we need to do. The first thing is we need to open that new page. So we're going to type in driver.get, and then we want it to open that next page. So let's see what happens. We can come right here. We'll just not run the time function and have it sleep and see what happens. So we'll run this and see if it opens the page and we can see it, or it goes too quick. It went too quick. So we'll stop right here and we'll say time.sleep, and we'll sleep for 2 seconds. So that way we can see if it actually opened the next page, and it opens the next page and then it quits. So now that we know we're able to get to the next page, we need to be able to open this file right here and get to this raw button. So in order to do that, what I think would be best is to inspect this link and see if we can find what these links, we'll see what specific class these links all have in common, so that way we can run Selenium to pull all the links that would hold every single file within this repository. So we can inspect this and it will tell us this is the line. And so we'll just go ahead and click this first class and see if it works. So we'll just copy this, and now we'll need a new resource. So we'll just call it resource 2 because I'm terrible at naming variables, and if I had more time to think about it, I would probably come up with something better. But you can name it whatever makes sense to you. So if I made this tool and somebody else just saw it online, they wouldn't be able to understand what's going on because I suck at naming variables. But you can name your variables better than me, and so I'm gonna let you name your own variables, but I'm gonna name mine resource 2 because I suck at naming variables. So we're gonna go driver dot, and we're gonna do a find elements just like this one, and then we're going to say by class name. This should be getting familiar to you by now. And then the class name is the one we just copied. If this works, it should be able to print for us that. It should be able to print for us this class right here. We'll see. We can actually get it to print main.py. So what we'll do is we'll print, and then we'll print the resource2.text. Okay, apparently we don't need .text. We'll just print resource2 and see what happens. And that has run, and it does need resource2.text. And the reason that this is not working is because we need it to loop through this resource that could be holding this variable that could be holding multiple links within it. So like we did down here, we will need to go for, and we can call this I if we want, but I'm going to change it so that way you don't get confused by all these different variables in our for loops. We'll call it for a in resource2, and then we're going to print resource2.text. We're going to print, instead of resource2.text, we're going to print a.text, so that way we can make sure it is printing for us the main.py, so that way we can tell it to click on main.py. So we can. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do a comparison inside of an if statement. We're going to comment this out, and instead of getting this little error right here, we're going to type in pass, so that way it will ignore the error for us, and we're going to say if the letters together is pi are in a.text, then we want to do something. We're going to say print it worked, pi is in the text. So now if we run this right here, oh, I see an error. We're going to get a problem. It says it worked right here, but the reason we get this right here is it says this is a local variable inside of this segment. So this is really not good practice. If you were working for a company as a programmer, you wouldn't do this, but we're not looking to work in a company as programmers. We're looking to use programming for hacking. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make this a global variable. We're going to say A is now a global variable and can be accessed anywhere, and it gets rid of this for us. The reason you wouldn't want to make this global, let's say we made this for loop with the I and we said it's a global. Now this I variable, everywhere we used it, is going to be everywhere in our code. So we cannot use the variable A anywhere else outside of this because we have made it a global variable. And that is really not good programming practice, but for the sake of our tool, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to use it. We'll run this and it should work for us. And it says it worked. Pi is in the text. What we'll do is we can do the same thing we did before, and we can click on this main.py and look at our URL so that the way we know how to structure it. And then after this time, I promise we'll use the click function, or the click method actually, and it'll make it much easier for us. So the way we would go about this, we'll delete this, is going to be similar. If you want, you can try and do something like this and get the next page based off of this URL that we see right here. So if you want to take this challenge, you can go ahead and do this now. And for everyone else, I'll walk you through it now. We'll call this, we'll just call it second page because I'm so good at naming variables. And then we're going to make this an F string just like we did down here. And we're going to add all this together to get that new URL. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to say repo. And let's see, what did we name this one down here? We named it, we'll just call it repo because we have the repo up here. We'll just copy this. Actually, we'll just leave this. So we'll just use the repo how it is. And then we'll just add in this right here. And we can copy that and paste it in. And then we'll add our slash for the new page that we're going to want to go to. And we'll add this variable in right here, a.text. So we'll say a.text. And now if we print second page, we should get a URL printed that looks exactly like this. And the reason we did it this way is because we're going to be looping through in this for loop all of the links, and we need these links right here. So if there was, let's say we had a main.py, and then we had a CSS, a main.css, and then we had a index.js, and then we had index.html, or we had file.php, and there was a whole bunch of files inside this program, we would want to loop through all of these files for us. So what we're going to do is set it up this way so you can add to it. So as an example would be like if JS was in a.txt, then it would do the JS instead of py for us. So that's actually a challenge for you. I'll show you how to add those on, and then I'll let you complete the tool as you see fit. So what we're going to do for now is we're just going to print this second page, and it's going to open it, and it's going to tell us right here. And we can even add in a time.sleep so that way you can see that it has worked. So it did print for us right here. Okay, so I just noticed if you click this page, it takes us to a page not found, and when you compare the two URLs, we're missing this repository right here. So what we will need to do is add in an extra repository, and let's actually see if we can just grab this next page right here. So we're looping through what would be considered the next page. Where's our links at? Okay, so we'll see if we can loop through the next page right here. So we'll add in, instead of repo, we need it to have that repository on it. So we can say next page, which is getting passed through our function. And now let's print it and see if this works for us. It's paused, and we have the repository, and if we click on it, it brings us to the next page that we want. And if we were going to add on to this program, let's say, like I was showing you, if there's a JS inside the file, so like if this is a JavaScript file instead of Python, or maybe we want to check for JavaScript and Python, and maybe later we want to add PHP, we can do that. And so we can say a.text, and then we can say right here, we need to close this off, and then we could say this exact same thing, and then we would print whatever it is that we want to test for. So we would say we're going to go to a new page. If a JavaScript is found, then we're going to do this, and then we can we would turn this into an elif, and it would say, okay, there's no JavaScript file. So because there's no JavaScript file, we're going to check for a Python file. And so we'll go ahead and run this, make sure we have no errors, and it's going to pass this JavaScript file, and it's going to go straight into the Python file for us. So we run this, and it passes this right here, and then it closes and it pulls down the main.py. So what you would do if you wanted to make this a comprehensive tool, you would say if there's PHP, if there's JavaScript, if there's a JSON, and any other kind of file that you might want to check for sensitive data. But because the repo we're working with to build this tool doesn't have any of that, I'm going to just leave it with Python, and I'm going to challenge you to make the if statements and the elif statements and the else statements all on your own, and maybe you can go look at repos and see what you want the program to open up to look for passwords. Now that we know that works, we're going to comment out this sleep function because we don't need it. We also don't need it to print the second page. What we're going to do now is we're going to call a second function inside of this function. So it's kind of getting like the movie Inception. We have a function that we're calling inside of another function, but we're going to do this one in a much easier method. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this one function is going to be called going for raw, and I'll show you why I'm naming it that. Going for raw. This is going to be the best variable name I have ever come up with. And then we're going to pass in the second page, and then we'll make the function up here and we'll call it def, and we're going to call it going for raw. We'll call the function, we're going to pass in second page. This is actually going to be the third page. We might actually change this inside here, this parameter, in just a second. So what we are going to be doing is going for the raw. So now that we are able to get to this page, we want to click this button so that way we can get to this page. So in order to click this button, it is going to be so much easier than what we've been doing as we've been editing this right here, the URL, and adding to it. What we're going to do is just click the button. So we can inspect this right here and see, where is it? We'll inspect See if it can pull it up for me. Okay, now that we have inspected it, and you can see when we hover over this right here, we can see this raw button. So now what we need to do is the same thing we've been doing, and we need to find a class and see if we can find a class that is used only with that button and get it to open up this raw, so that way we land on this page right here. We're just going to copy that class name that I just showed you right here and see if that can open up this tab for us. So now under this function, what we're going to do is we're just going to say, we're going to type in raw equals, and then we're going to say driver dot find elements. Actually, this time instead of elements plural, we're going to do just one element, and we're going to say by dot class name, just like we have been. And then we will we'll paste in our link right here. And now what we're going to do is something really simple. We're just going to say raw.click. And it's going to click that button for us. And then what we'll do is we'll come over here. We'll click this. Okay, now that we're able to get to this page, we're going to tell it that we want the page source. We're going to want it to right click and say view page source, and then we're going to grab all of this inside of an F string and then see if we can find a password in it. And what that's going to look like is something like this. We want the HTML, and we're going to say driver dot page source. That way it grabs the page source for us, like I just showed you, as the same as right clicking it and view page source. We want it to grab that, and then we're going to put this into an F string, and we're just going to change the HTML. We'll just use that same variable, and we'll say HTML is going to be equal to this HTML inside of an F string, because we want it to be converted into a string. So we'll say HTML. So now we have this in a string, and just to check it, we can say, and just to check this, we can say print, and then we want to print HTML. And now when we run this, it's going to print all of that page source for us into our console, and we want to make sure that it is in a string. We have an error. Let's see if we can find the error here. We need to use driver.get, and then we need to get the second page right here. So now if we run this, it should work. And it clicked the button and it printed all of this for us. And let's see if it printed. Here we have the tags for us. And now that we have this printed, and it's printed inside of the HTML, so we know we grabbed the entire page, we can close out of this. We don't need this print statement. What we're going to do now is really similar to what we did down here. We're going to say if the password is in HTML, we want it to print found password. So we'll say print found password. And now we can run this. And if it finds the word password inside of the HTML, it's going to print found password. And if we wanted to, we can turn this into an F string, and we can get it to print for us the actual URL where the password was found. And we can say something like this. We'll make this an F string and say we want to print second page. So it'll say found the password, and it'll print the page for us. And we could click on this second page and go to it. We're getting this error here because we need to put this inside of our string. So if we print this, now it'll tell us it found the password, and it'll give us the page to go to right here to check and see what is the context of this password. Now to finish off our tool, so that way we can scrape any page on GitHub that we want, remembering that we have to get to the page like this. We can go ahead and copy this, and we're going to make an input, and we're going to name our input scrape, just like this, and we will say equals, and we're going to make this an input, and we're going to say what page would you like to scrape, just like this, question mark, space. And now this scrape, we're going to pass into our driver.get right here. So we will pass in scrape. We're going to have to make this an F string, and we'll say scrape, and then we'll highlight it and put it inside curly braces. And now when we run this, it should ask us for an input. What page would you like to scrape? And then we put in our page, making sure we remember the HTTPS. And now when we run this, it should run the page for us. And now you can run it against other repos, and it is a complete tool for you. If you have any suggestions on a tool that you think we should build next that shouldn't be too difficult for us as we are just learning Python, please let me know down in the comments. And if you have made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe.